We're meeting with Ralph. Ralph, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit?
My name is Ralph Gilles. I'm head of FCA, which is Fiat Chrysler Automobiles. So I'm running the global design for the company.
For Alfa Romeo?
Yes, Alfa Romeo, Maserati, Fiat, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram. So there's a lot going on there. We have a lot of brands. But we're here to talk specifically about the Alfa Romeo brand, which is coming for the second year now to the Amelia Island Concourse. So it's a special place. It's a place that respects pedigree and respects racing heritage and also design heritage. The brand is over 105 years old, and we're kind of basically trying to re-educate the consumer, the American consumer, the Alfisti. There's a lot of them here that are very passionate about Italian cars in general and Alfas, but we really haven't been here in any significance in a few decades. So what we're doing here is a little walk down memory lane. The brand has an incredible history of racing, of vehicle development, innovation, powertrains. I mean, even Ferrari, Mr. Ferrari himself, Enzo, drove for the brand at one time. So a lot of people have come through the brand and left their mark. And as it's evolved, it's one thing that has stayed consistent with the brand is this love for performance, because all of the hardware of the brand emanates from racing, whether it's the powertrain, the way it handles, the braking systems, all that. And that's still true to this day. The Quattrofoglio badge, which started off in 1923 as a lucky charm, literally, for the driver of his time, for Ugo Savici, that was his trademark. And the one time he raced without it, he crashed and died. So ever since then, it's adorned every Alfa Romeo race car all the way up to today. So that's kind of neat to kind of tell that story. But if you look at the history, again, Enzo Ferrari in 1929 had driven for us a lot of racing successes, and some of the most beautiful Alfas we're about to see in a second here. But post-war, things started to really get interesting. The cars transitioned from exposed wheels and went into covered fendered cars, and that's when the heat really got turned on. You know, in the 50s, when the economy in Europe was really starting to come by, the technology, again, coming from the war, a lot of those engineers now were landing in the automotive industry, especially in Torino, right? The hotbed, kind of the epicenter of Italian performance.
And you're dealing at that point with, you know, the Nuvollaris and the Fangios,
exactly,
and,
the
iconic names of racing.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know those names today, but they were the winningest drivers of their time, the Michael Schumachers of their day, the Lewis Hamiltons of their time.
And it's interesting. I once heard an interview with Schumacher, and he was asked, well, you know, how would you compare to Fangio? He goes, no one compares to Fangio.
The cars were not as safe as they are today. And one of my favorites, the TZ, the gorgeous Zagato. Again, Zagato's a coach builder that has a great relationship with Alfa going way back, over 50, 60 years. And then again, the Graduate. A lot of Americans know this car as a Graduate, which was in that famous movie with
Mrs. Robinson.
Mrs. Robinson, yes. And then the Tipo 33, the Alfa Romeo Sodale race car, which has inspired other cars. Even outside of the Alfa brand, a lot of Italian cars have used this mid-engine dual swollen fender shape, which is really organic and still beautiful. And that vehicle has inspired our current 4C. The Quattro C, as they would say in Italian, has those proportions where the powertrain is just behind the rear wheel. The driver's right in the middle, so it's truly a carbon fiber cockpit. So we came back to America with this vehicle, and it's such a pure statement about performance that it was really important for the 4C to reestablish the Alfa brand in the U.S. market as the lover of performance. And then we follow this up today with the new Giulia, which will be a 2017 model launching later this summer. Very significant vehicle, and we have an actual copy here sitting next to the 4C and the 4C Spider. The Alfa Giulia, this happens to be the Quattrofoglio version, which will be the first version available in the marketplace. Serious machine here. Talking about a 3,400-pound car with a 505 horsepower Ferrari-derived 2.9-liter twin-turbo, all-aluminum V6 engine. So
and some stopping power down there.
Yes, available in two different brake systems. This happens to be the 15.4-inch, 390-millimeter carbon ceramic 6-piston Brembo brakes, giving it 102-foot, 60-to-0 stopping. So again, performance that you would associate to GT cars almost, not so much four-door sedans. And then this is this kind of format is something akin to what Alfa does, the mixing of a daily driver with incredible race car-like performance. One of my favorite features of the vehicle is the active front splitter. Tucks away when out of harm's way, and when it's needed at high speed, it comes down. and creates meaningful front downforce.
Now the design on this, the designer was...
Lorenzo Ramaciotti, guy. There's several designers involved, but it was designed by my predecessor, who actually spent over 40 years at Pininfarina. So he's a very storied gentleman, Lorenzo Ramaciotti. This was kind of one of his last gifts to us before retiring last year. I like the design a lot because it stretches around the hardware. There's no fat on this vehicle. It's really under a lot of tension. The shapes are taut and look like almost like muscular, very organic shapes, but yet it's very tidy.
Excellent. Can we step over here and look at some of the history that you talked about? You've got it on display.
This is very generous owners. This happens to be from a gentleman called Brandon Adrian, who's lent us his car. That's the other thing we're finding is there's still a lot of activity going on stateside with these vintage racing cars. You know, they're alive and well. The people have cherished them, so it's almost like we never left. You know? So they welcome us back, and people are letting us use their own personal cars on displays here. So it's made our coming back and telling our story a lot easier. So really, hats off to the Alfa Romeo community out there, who's kind of looking out for us. So they're very happy we're back, and they're helping us tell our story.
Yes, excellent, excellent. And we've actually got a number of the vintage Alfas that race at this Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix, and the Alfas are always.
Are they?
Well, it's the lines, I think. You know, I mean,
and
you've continued with that line.
If you look at some of the race cars from other competitors, I'm not going to name names, but they tend to be function first, and sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean beautiful. The one thing about Italian design is they've blended functionality and beauty perfectly. The cars are always beautiful. The Italian race cars always, still to this day, are gorgeous as they kind of celebrate performance, integrate performance, but yet the brand is so well integrated into the shape. This Spider Veloce, I love the names too. I mean, the names are fantastic. Italians make some of the most mundane things sound really exotic. You know? Veloce meaning speed, Spider meaning obviously open top. So a really cool car, and this one looks like a survivor. Like it's not really.
This is very original.
It's a very gorgeous car.
Well, Ralph, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate your time.
It's been a pleasure.
Hopefully we get to visit us in Pittsburgh at some point.